The history of coral reefs through time is a very interesting one, and it's a very long one as well. We're talking about a history that's extended for about 540 million years. Some of the very earliest ecosystems were comprised of reef-building organisms.
Coral reefs are ecosystems that have undergone immense change across hundreds of millions of years. During the upheavals of the ice ages, the space that is the Great Barrier Reef today repeatedly alternated between forest and coral reef. Even earlier, reefs were also affected by mass extinction events.
In actuality, there's been 5 mass extinction events over that 540 million year period. Now, during those mass extinction events, corals and reefs have suffered, but they have suffered not only during those mass extinction events. There have also been other times that reef paleontologists have called biotic crises. Many of those reef crises, including the ones that are also mass extinction events, have coincided with dramatic increases in temperature and CO2 in the Earth's climate. So they've been accompanied by global climate change, which is quite interesting from the standpoint of trying to interpret the effects of what climate change might do to living reefs. These biotic crises events have been characterized by dramatic reductions in biodiversity on coral reefs, not only the corals but other organisms. They've also been characterized by a changeover from corals being the dominant framework builders, the dominant components of reefs, to other organisms being the dominant components. And in general, when that shift occurs, it occurs from the big, expansive, fast-growing corals with the big frameworks to smaller organisms that may even only be one-celled.
This is because everything within a marine ecosystem is connected. The degradation or removal of any link in the chain of the food web will affect the pattern of the entire food web. This spreads into other ecosystems as they are all connected through the ebb and flow of currents and tides. Our actions are also a key part of this dynamic. Due to the dramatic increase in anthropogenic carbon dioxide emissions, farming practices, overfishing, and degraded waterways flowing into the reef, today we are seeing more and more frequent mass bleaching events and ocean acidification caused by increases in ocean temperature and changes to the ocean's pH. These are clear measurables that indicate an altered ecosystem. This has the potential to lead to a future where for most, if not all reefs, erosion will outstrip growth by mid-century. They will have lost their resiliency and lost most of their former biodiversity.
There have been lots of dramatic changes that coral reefs have been subject to. The reefs in general and the coral reefs in the last couple of 100 million years have been able to bounce back from those crises. So one might say, oh, well, you know, corals and coral reefs, they've seen it all before. What's the problem? And the problem is that the amount of time it's taken them to bounce back has averaged about 10 million years. So, you know, you could say, well, you know, it's okay, the coral reefs will be fine in due time, but we won't be around to see that. And one has to sort of think about the kind of world one wants to live in and whether we could do anything about, you know, the demise of those coral reefs.
Despite the size and scale of past disturbances, all reefs now face a common threat more damaging than anything that has been experienced within their entire geological history. This new challenge is directly caused by the rate at which carbon dioxide is increasing in our atmosphere and is occurring at a speed that the natural world has not seen for tens of millions of years. Vague hopes that biological adaptation might accommodate this are now clearly not supportable.
The red list is something that's put out by the IUCN, and basically 845 coral species have been evaluated. Approximately 27% have been designated as critically endangered, or vulnerable to extinction. It's by using these kinds of assessments that we come to an understanding of the potential risk of various ecosystems and the species that comprise those ecosystems.
That the reefs will be degraded as a result of climate change is inevitable. Whether this degradation remains moderate and reversible, or is allowed to escalate and cause destruction to the entire ecosystem, will depend on the actions we take now to mitigate carbon dioxide emissions.
We always strive to tell people that not to lose hope, that individual actions can have a large effect, especially when they're taken collectively. I think there's great hope for the reefs. If we can manage them properly, if we can manage them for these local stressors, we can reverse this trajectory of decline. We can get back to some other place. We can put them in a position where they'll be the least susceptible to climate change.